888-222-9842. Let's check in with State Senator Rob Sampson from Wolcott. A little reaction, Rob, to what you heard today and what you hear every day from the governor?
I am all fired up, Todd. I can't even tell you. Listening to the governor's remarks today, it really took me aback.
Like what took you aback?
Living in Connecticut, we are kind of in a bad dream, constantly being chased around by a dark cloud of more and more taxes and government regulation as it is. But this has transformed into a nightmare. It really has. We have the minor bad dream of the COVID virus. And I don't mean to minimize the seriousness of the virus, but I'm far less concerned about that than what I'm watching from the highest levels of our state government. This is the dream, and therefore a nightmare to me and freedom-loving people. This is the dream of the Connecticut Democratic Party. This is progressivism, by the way, Todd. If you've ever wanted to come up with a definition for people of what the progressive political ideology, this is it. It is when the people do not have a say, the legislators that they elect do not have a say, but a supreme government bureaucrat and his team of so-called experts is deciding how all of us are going to live. And it's wrong and un-American.
Well, it is all of that. I couldn't agree more with your description and with your upset over it. And it's also transparent, I think, that there is, you can feel Ned posturing, trying to strike a stance that he thinks is appropriate. That is that he's smarter than everybody else, that his committee of elites who get to work in a privileged environment of secrecy and without freedom of information access from the media or the general public, and they issue decrees. And then he talks about how wonderful the decrees are, and he can't understand why anybody would object to the decrees. It's a very bizarre situation we're in, and bizarre that Americans have become somehow so anesthetized that they accept this lying down. Right.
From the very beginning, I have tried to be cooperative, understanding the times that we're in, and the fact that our system of laws does create a situation where the governor does take on a heightened role and more authority when there's an emergency, afloat. I don't know if we're still in that situation. And I have two things I want to say about. The first one is that we were told that all of these provisions were only in place for one reason, and that was to flatten the curve so that we did not overwhelm our emergency rooms and our ICUs and our hospitals. That's what we were told. You will have to do these things to prevent that. No promise that you are not going to get sick. No promise that we're going to eliminate the number of people that could potentially die from the virus. It's a grand lie, Todd. It is a grand lie that politicians all across this country are telling their constituents that they have the power to save their lives. And in fact, they're using that grand lie as a way to tell the people of the state and all across this country that if you speak up and you say you want freedom to make your own choices and assess your own risk, that somehow you are putting other people at risk. Well, I will tell you that the governor of the state of Connecticut has no power to save anyone. The way this works is if you keep people in their homes, yes, you can keep them safe temporarily from getting the virus. But the moment you begin letting people that have no immunity to the virus back into the world, they're going to be exposed and people will get sick and some will die. And, flattening the curve necessarily extends the curve also. And there's no guarantee that more people will not die as a result of flattening the curve than if they had just let the virus do its thing to begin with. I've seen no science. I've seen no models that actually depict how many total deaths there are one way versus the other. And I would argue that the longer you let this perpetuate, the more chance for more people to die is. If it was me, I would have recommended to the American people a plan, which is assess this at your own risk. This is the importance of this virus, and protect yourself if you are smart. And I would have focused all resources on protecting the vulnerable community and letting the rest of the world operate on their own, assessing their own risk and doing social distancing if they choose, etc., and making their own choices. And the virus would have cycled through our system like it has in Sweden, and we'd be in a far better place today.
Agreed, Rob. Hold on one second. I've just got to do a weather forecast, then we can talk some more. State Senator Rob Sampson is here. We're talking COVID con. That's what I believe is going on now. The con is to keep us under the thumb. It seems to me, Rob, indefinitely they want to keep us shut down. That originally May 20th was sold as a reopen date, and there is no reopen. There is incremental reduction in pressure of the boot of the authoritarian governor working as a dictator with his panel of elites telling us what to do in a way that is, to me, just stunning for its stupidity and lack of any sense of democratic principles.
You are absolutely correct. The governor of this state will keep this state shut down at some level forever if he can. There's no doubt about it. He is getting to live his dream as a progressive Democrat, which is to be a king, essentially, and to have his team of experts advising him so he can make policy for the rest of us because we're not bright enough to figure it out for ourselves.
But what's the incentive? So what's the political upside? I assume there's got to be a political upside to him for wishing for this thing you're saying he wishes for. How does that play out for you?
Look, I don't understand the mentality of someone who believes in a progressive ideological philosophy. I think it has to do something with their desire to influence the evolution of culture and society. That if people left to their own devices with that evil thing called freedom, Todd, they're going to do all sorts of crazy things, like invent things and create jobs and wealth and a prosperous society. And the progressives can do a much, much better job. They can control what happens. They can control who is going to succeed and who's going to fail and decide winners and losers and which businesses are going to operate and where you get to buy a sofa. You know, you can't buy it from Bob's Discount Furniture because they're not essential, but you can still get one at Target because apparently they are. It makes no sense. There's no logic to it. The governor comes out with a press conference, issues a bunch of edicts, says he's going to come up with an executive order, and the phone calls light up for every state legislator in the state with people wondering exactly what the details are, as if we know. I have no idea. I only know what you know from watching this press conference, and I know it's madness that I don't agree with. And I've tried to cooperate all along, but it has reached epic levels at this point. The virus, I'm sorry to say, I know people are scared. I know that people are glued to the TV and they're hearing about this and they know about ICU nurses. I got friends. My friend Teresa is delivering food to frontline nurses on a regular basis. It's a real thing, but it is not rising to the level of shutting down our entire world, and that is what has happened.
So you assign it to more an ideological thing. To me, I look at politics as being more practical, that they want to control everything so they can win elections. They want to have their way so that they can divert more resources to their voters and rig elections more effectively. And clearly this provides an opportunity to put a strong arm onto some places where the strong arm wouldn't have worked before. It's a reconfiguration that puts more power into the hands of Ned and his cronies without having to answer to legislators and democratic processes. And to me, I find this just appalling. His comments the other day about he didn't say you were evil if you believed in liberty. He said you were dumb. And that's different, but it's still appalling. I don't know what's going on and how we stop him, but how do we stop him?
Well, let me just say, there are things happening right now every day. They are moving the Democrat agenda in this state without using the legislature or the typical way you make law. You're talking about mail-in voting. This is a dream for the Democratic Party. They know exactly how much fraud is associated with absentee balloting. They also know how insignificant this primary election is. The candidates are already decided. You can still get an absentee ballot by calling and getting one. It's not a complex process. But they want to move the ball, and they think this is a great opportunity to do it. Rental assistance is another opportunity to pick a special interest group. And, Todd, the most amazing and shocking thing I found out yesterday, a group of legislators, all Democrats, sent a letter to the governor asking for $20 million to give to, guess who? Illegal immigrants in this state.
Illegal immigrants.
That is correct.
Yes. So
this would never happen through the legislative process.
And things don't get undone once they're in place.
Yeah, it's hard to say what's going to happen. The actual legislative session ended a couple of nights ago, and I don't know if we're going to have a special session. If we do, I don't know who's going to set the parameters for what happens there. It's very, very hard to tell exactly what the future holds for Connecticut, for freedom and our way of life and our system of laws and government. You know, this is what happens when you have a government that is run by men instead of laws. We cannot be ruled by men because they make arbitrary choices, because they think, for instance, I heard him say yesterday that tattoo shops, they're not important. You know how many tattoo shops called me yesterday, Todd? Like everyone in a 100-mile radius. PO'd because their business is being targeted by the governor as insignificant because it's insignificant to him. What happens when your business is the one that is targeted as insignificant is what I have to ask my neighbors. That's the danger.
When there are no principles, there's just power being exercised without
That's why we have
as
laws that are clear
yes.
and understandable, not men deciding what's best for us.
All right, Rob Sampson, state senator from Wolcott. I love when you're fired up like this. Any day you're this angry, please come on.
I hope it's not that often then, Todd.
Yeah, well, I'm worried about your blood pressure, that's all. But having you on
right.
regularly would be great. Thank you, sir.
Good,
State Senator Rob Sampson. Wow. Right on with that stuff, huh?